First launched as a radio network known as the National Broadcasting System in 1926, the company eventually became the NBC we know today. After existing for nearly a century, it's not surprising that the network has experienced its share of controversy. Let's take a look at some of NBC's biggest scandals. After David Letterman's departure from NBC, Conan O'Brien took over the vacated late-night spot. In 2004, NBC faced a conundrum. O'Brien's contract was up, and reports indicated that the rival Fox network was trying to lure O'Brien with boatloads of cash. O'Brien had made no secret of his eagerness to host an 11:30 p.m. show, leaving NBC contemplating a potential scenario in which O'Brien would compete head-to-head with Jay Leno and David Letterman. To keep O'Brien from bolting, the network made the surprising announcement that O'Brien was replacing Leno as host of Tonight. In 5 years, that is. When 2009 finally rolled around, however, NBC faced a new dilemma. Leno's ratings remained strong, and he didn't seem to want to leave. If Leno were to jump to another network, he would pose a serious threat to O'Brien's Tonight. To prevent that from happening, NBC execs came up with an ill-conceived plan to keep Leno at NBC by offering him his own 5-night-a-week show in primetime, right before the local news broadcasts that preceded The Tonight Show. NBC's experiment was a disaster. O'Brien's tenure on Tonight lasted 7 months before Leno was reinstated as host, with the network paying O'Brien a reported $40 million to go away. Comedian Fred Allen famously said that, quote, "Imitation is the sincerest form of television," a truism that's remained in place despite the decades that have passed since he said it. That was clearly the thinking behind NBC's 2011 drama The Playboy Club, which was clearly inspired by the success of Mad Men. Despite being set in the same era, while Mad Men basked in accolades, the Playboy Club, set at Hugh Hefner's flagship Chicago Playboy Club in the early 1960s, was instantly hit with controversy. According to The Hollywood Reporter, not only did feminist icon Gloria Steinem urge a boycott, one NBC affiliate flat-out refused to air the show. When the series was unceremoniously canceled after just a few episodes, the infamous Parents Television Council issued a statement to gloat about it. Bringing the Playboy Club to broadcast television was a poor programming decision from the start. We're pleased that NBC will no longer be airing a program so inherently linked to a pornographic brand that denigrates and sexualizes women. We hope other broadcasters heed the important lessons of this programming debacle. NBC's flagship morning show Today was slammed with controversy in 2012 when Ann Curry was demoted after less than a year in the anchor chair.
I will still be a part of the Today Show family, but I'm going to have a new title and a new role.
Reports penned the sudden staffing switch on co-anchor Matt Lauer, citing a lack of chemistry between the two. The negativity that surrounded the awkward situation hit Today hard. New York Magazine reported, in the aftermath of the Curry debacle, the show lost 500,000 viewers and ceded first place in the ratings war to ABC's Good Morning America, losing millions of dollars overnight. 8 years after her Today disaster, Curry admitted that chapter in her life remained a painful one. She said in a 2020 interview with Elle, "The bottom line is that it still hurts. It honestly hurts really deeply because I really think I did nothing wrong." In fact, Curry admitted that she still hadn't received a clear explanation about why she was fired. She went on to say, "I still don't really understand it. If I had known what was happening in the back rooms of power, then I would know. I've asked people why, and I haven't gotten a good answer." Brian Williams had held the top anchor position at NBC News since 2004, when he replaced Tom Brokaw as anchor and managing editor of the NBC Nightly News. Prior to that, Williams served as a war correspondent in Iraq. As the Los Angeles Times recalled, whenever Williams subsequently appeared on a talk show, he was prone to share an anecdote about being in a helicopter that was hit by a rocket-propelled grenade. The Times also noted that the story seemed to change every time he told it. It all came crashing down in a 2015 interview with Stars and Stripes, when Williams was forced to fess up to his pants-on-fire fibbing.
"I want to apologize. I said I was traveling in an aircraft that was hit by RPG fire. I was instead in a following aircraft."
According to the New York Times, Williams was ultimately suspended without pay for 6 months. Lester Holt took over the anchor duties at NBC Nightly News, a replacement gig that wound up becoming permanent. Williams eventually found another role within the NBC family, anchoring a weeknight show on MSNBC, The 11th Hour with Brian Williams. When Donald Trump announced his presidential run in the summer of 2015, he immediately created controversy thanks to an incendiary speech that was incredibly insensitive towards Mexican immigrants.
They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
That speech created a big headache for NBC, given that the wannabe POTUS was, at the time, starring on the network's reality show, The Celebrity Apprentice. In addition, NBC was also embroiled in a deal to air the Trump-owned Miss Universe and Miss USA pageants. Ultimately, NBC decided to cut all ties with him. A network spokesman said, "At NBC, respect and dignity for all people are cornerstones of our values. Due to the recent derogatory statements by Donald Trump regarding immigrants, NBC Universal is ending its business relationship with Mr. Trump." Trump responded with a statement of his own, slamming the network as, quote, weak and foolish. Yet that wasn't the end of Trump's association with NBC. Further controversy ensued when Trump was invited to host Saturday Night Live that November, resulting in a protest and an avalanche of negative press. Weeks before the 2016 presidential election, Republican nominee Donald Trump was blindsided by the release of a tape recorded a decade earlier. The audio featured Trump boasting about using his fame to inflict uninvited kisses on unsuspecting women and bragging about grabbing women's genitals without their permission. These statements were recorded when he chatted with Access Hollywood host Billy Bush while they wore microphones off camera. Trump responded with an apology and a short statement promising he would, quote, be a better man tomorrow and will never ever let you down, as reported by the New York Times. The tape's release was also bad news for NBC. Bush, heard laughing enthusiastically at Trump's lewd comments, was then a member of the NBC family, having joined Today just a few months earlier. Bush was suspended and then fired. NBC Senior Vice President Noah Oppenheim said in a statement, "There is simply no excuse for Billy's language and behavior on that tape." Interestingly enough, the fallout from Trump's locker room talk was far harsher for Bush than it was for Trump. Bush remained unemployed for 3 years, finally landing another TV job when he was hired by Extra in 2019. Trump became America's 45th president. The Biggest Loser was a hit when it made its NBC debut in 2004. The premise was aspirational. Morbidly obese contestants were put on a radical diet and exercise regime over the course of several months, with the person to lose the most weight in the duration of the season winning a $250,000 prize. In 2016, the show became enveloped in scandal when the New York Post reported the claims of a source close to production who alleged that contestants were given the amphetamine Adderall and, quote, pills that contain ephedra extract, a substance the FDA banned in 2004 to assist in speeding up weight loss. In addition, former contestant Suzanne Mendonca told the Post that it was common for contestants to pop amphetamines and diuretics and then vomit prior to weigh-ins in order to demonstrate a more dramatic weight loss. Trainer Bob Harper denied the allegations, telling Self that what was alleged was, quote, in direct conflict with my lifelong devotion to health and fitness. The show didn't return to NBC after the Post's report, which became the target of a defamation lawsuit waged by show doctor Robert Huizinga, who was also alleged to have supplied contestants with banned substances. The Biggest Loser did, however, finally come back for the NBC Universal-owned USA Network in 2020. The negative press Matt Lauer experienced over Ann Curry's Today exit was a mere blip compared to the tsunami of devastating media coverage when he was accused of sexual misconduct in 2017. A story in Variety detailed the allegations of several women who shared their accusations of predatory sexual behavior in detail. One of the creepier claims to emerge was that Lauer had a button under his desk that, when pressed, would instantly lock his office door from the outside. Lauer was ultimately fired, with Today host anchors Savannah Guthrie and Hoda Kotb sharing the news on the air. Variety subsequently reported that journalist Ronan Farrow's then upcoming book, Catch and Kill, featured NBC employee Brooke Nevels' allegation that Lauer had sexually assaulted her. While Farrow reported that it was NBC's investigation into Nevels' claims that led to Lauer's dismissal, the disgraced TV star denied her accusation in an op-ed he wrote for Mediaite. NBC said in a statement to Variety, Matt Lauer's conduct was appalling, horrific, and reprehensible, as we said at the time. That's why he was fired within 24 hours of us first learning of the complaint. Our hearts break again for our colleague. When NBC hired Megyn Kelly in 2017, it was immediately deemed a controversial choice. After all, Kelly was coming from far-right Fox News, where she was no stranger to making outrageous comments, including claiming both Santa and Jesus were white. She didn't exactly change minds when her first interview for the network was with conspiracy theorist Alex Jones, who is being sued by parents of children killed during the Sandy Hook massacre for his disturbing and outrageous claims the mass shooting was a false flag operation staged by actors. Her daytime series for NBC, Megyn Kelly Today, didn't exactly get off to an auspicious start either. Kelly was criticized when she badgered Jane Fonda about her plastic surgery, and then ticked off a Will and Grace star by asking an audience member if he, quote, became gay from watching the sitcom. Kelly really stepped in it, however, when she defended blackface in Halloween costumes. Outrage ensued. Kelly was fired and her show was canceled less than a month after it premiered. According to CNN, NBC learned an expensive lesson from the experience when the terms of Kelly's contract required they pay her the remaining $30 million of her $69 million deal. Bob Costas had been a member of the NBC sports team since he was 27 and grew to become one of the network's most respected personalities for his commentary on everything from the World Series to the Olympics to the Kentucky Derby. As an ESPN report recalled, Costas began speaking out about the spate of retired NFL players who were experiencing brain damage due to persistent head injuries throughout their football careers. Over time, this created friction between his bosses at NBC Sports and the NFL, which broadcast games on NBC. The 2015 release of the film Concussion, which dealt with that precise issue, led Costas to submit a script he'd written lambasting the NFL for willfully injuring their players. It never made it on the air because the network was in the midst of negotiations with the NFL for its popular Thursday night football broadcasts. Costas told ESPN, "It was at that point that I realized that this was an untenable situation for me. I knew my days there were numbered." In January 2019, he parted ways with a network that had been his home for 40 years, telling the New York Post, "It's all settled quietly and happily for all concerned." However, an NBC rep rebuked his claims regarding his unaired NFL remarks, telling ESPN that the network was, quote, disappointed that Costas had chosen to mischaracterize and share these private interactions. NBC News chairman Andy Lack was on the receiving end of much criticism over the years, from his handling of the Matt Lauer scandal to the allegation that he blocked journalist Ronan Farrow's reporting on Harvey Weinstein from appearing on the network. NBC News president Noah Oppenheim vehemently denied Farrow's reporting at the time, calling it a, quote, smear that collapses under the slightest scrutiny. Still, after 5 years in the job, Lack was shown the door in May 2020. As NPR reported, Lack was also the driving force behind the disastrous decision to hire Megyn Kelly, which led to a mountain of negative press and cost the network a fortune. What really did Lack in, however, was Farrow's reporting in his book about Lack's own behavior. The journalist outlined Lack's alleged pattern of preying on young female staffers, claiming that he, quote, pursued sexual relationships with them, and then ultimately turned hostile toward the women when the relationships ended. According to NPR, news of Lack's ouster was buried in an announcement about corporate restructuring that saw Lack replaced by Telemundo exec Cesar Conde, who was appointed to take charge of NBC News, CNBC, and MSNBC. After a single season as a judge on America's Got Talent, Gabrielle Union and Julianne Hough weren't invited back. While Hough issued a statement declaring she, quote, had a wonderful time, Union went down swinging when she alleged that the set was, quote, toxic and racially insensitive. The fact that she took her concerns about her treatment on the show to producers, she claimed, is why she'd been fired. According to a report in Vulture, Union also clashed with Judge Simon Cowell over his smoking habit, claiming he had a tendency to light up in his dressing room, located right next to hers and resulting in smoke seeping into her dressing room. Union subsequently tweeted that she shared her concerns in a 5-hour meeting, which led to an investigation. An NBC representative told Page Six that the investigation ultimately determined, quote, that the concerns raised by Miss Union had no bearing on the decision not to exercise the option on her contract. The end result was, quote, an amicable resolution between the network and the jilted star. For decades, the Golden Globes have been dogged by accusations of shady practices, largely on account of the alleged mismanagement of the ceremony by its hosting organization, the Hollywood Foreign Press Association. By 2021, however, the Globes had built up a sheen of legitimacy that belied the sketchiness of the HFPA, consisting of just 87 mostly elderly members. Yet because of the Globe's perceived prestige, this small group held outsized power in Hollywood until, in 2021, the HFPA was taken to task for its lack of diversity when a report revealed the group had a grand total of 0 black members. Vague promises were made to do better, and platitudes about inclusion were uttered. However, the Los Angeles Times reported that things got real when more than 100 top Hollywood publicists sent a scathing letter to the HFPA, alleging, quote, discriminatory behavior, unprofessionalism, ethical impropriety, and alleged financial corruption. The letter also called out NBC for its complicity, with the network having aired the ceremony for well over 2 decades. On May 10th, NBC announced it would not be airing the Golden Globes in 2022, in order to allow the HFPA time to implement all the sweeping changes it laid out to The Hollywood Reporter. The network was, quote, hopeful the show could return in 2023. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Nicki Swift videos about your favorite stuff are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.